today's eMoney tip of the week, we'll continue our conversation about Monte Carlo. Last week, if you haven't seen it, go back to my eMoney tip of the week number 57, where I talk about understanding Monte Carlo. I got more technical than I really ever get inside these. That's why we're breaking into 2 weeks. That's a lot of information to go over. So I talked a lot about, and I was alluding to, I get these debates, philosophical debates with other advisors, tell me that eMoney is showing too high of a data set. I only show 4 or 5% rate of return, Greg. This thing's showing 7 or 8 or 9% rate of return. Why is that? Well, we have to understand what it's doing is that's the average for Monte Carlo. This software is built on the chassis of Decision Center, right? In other words, that's where this thing, in my opinion, shines. That's what everything's supposed to feed into, if it works here. So when you come into here, and we're going to see it's defaults lifetime portfolio value. Let's switch over to Monte Carlo to really look at stuff. But I want you to see right here, in this lifetime portfolio value, depending on your version you have, you might be able to change this from linear projections, and you can change it to some of the Monte Carlo projections. That's a fairly new in the last year or two that change has been in there. This has been there always. I always say, $30 million doesn't spend like you used to. You can always change the present value. But I really don't ever spend time in here. There's very few times where I come into lifetime portfolio value, and usually I do. I have it scrolled up like this so people can't see the dollar amounts down here. And I'm just trying to show them green when something can't actually move on Monte Carlo. So sometimes make a decision, doesn't move us up 1%, doesn't move the needle, but it actually is impactful. So I want the client to see that. That's about the only time I'll actually ever come in here. So into lifetime portfolio value. I spend most of my time in Monte Carlo. So we look at this asset spread. So we just talked about the standard deviation, understanding where the standard deviation is, and now we can see that spread of where these results are happening, how it's affecting the portfolio. But where is it getting these end numbers? And again, you can put these in present value. I don't really show clients this, so I'm not really worried about the present value, right? So they're more manageable numbers because we as humans tend to get anchored, and all they see is 8 million, and they expect to have 8 million. It's pretty unrealistic. And I'll show you the Monte Carlo report. The probabilities of them getting there are very, very low. Right? That's like winning the lottery. Everything has to go that way. You can also, it's nice if you want to get into cash flow reports, you can see the end result here in each one of these columns. Okay. But I like to be in the spread, in the summary here, because if you see my other reports, I keep these things down below here. I want the client focusing on what moves the needle, right? But that being said, we have to understand what's going on here on our lifetime portfolio value if we were to make this a flat rate of return. So I made this a 5% flat rate of return. And you can see right here, obviously this is worse because this is linear projections, right? So these linear projections were pretty absurd. It's assuming this client's going to earn 8.06, 8.06, 8.06, and now we're assuming they earn 5%, 5%, 5%. But it's also going to impact the Monte Carlo. And the reason why it's going to impact the Monte Carlo because there's no up years, right? So you need those really great positive years to really help out a portfolio. So you can see now the asset spread is very narrow because we're overriding everything with a flat 5% rate of return. There's just a couple of areas that haven't been overridden in terms of the assets. It's giving us a spread. So it doesn't really do anything for the client. So when you put things in here like a flat 5%, Monte Carlo is not going to do what you want Monte Carlo to do. But let's get back to a normal client. Let's get past the argument of flat versus Monte Carlo. Let's just assume you're using Monte Carlo. And what we can see in here is it's showing a 91% when this pops up, rate of return, probability of success. So what does that mean? Well, what that 91% probability of success means is it's taking the cash flow, which is the granddaddy of all the reports. This is essentially the brains of eMoney. It's taking this and it's changing around the returns inside of here. So the cash flow stays the same. It's not Monte Carlo in the cash flow, right? So this is cash flow based software, not goals based software. It's to come in here, but the rate of return on all different accounts or the buckets that are inside the portfolio of assets are going to have different rates of returns associated with it, showing the negative and the positive years. So it's really, really impactful to take all this data set, essentially thousands of Excel spreadsheets, and plug into one little area your clients can see. Let's say somebody wants a little bit more detail to understand that. We're going to come under here under reports. We're going to come in here under reports, and we're going to go down to all reports, and we're going to click on Monte Carlo down here. Now, this used to take a long time to run inside of here. It's gotten a lot faster, at least on my end it has been over the last few years. This report used to be a lot more useful when the asset spread wasn't on Decision Center. That's an upgrade in the last 2 or 3 years. But what you can see is you can see all this information. Why do I not like this? Well, one, it can't put future value in today's dollars. It anchors somebody to think that they could be worth $71 million. It's potentially possible, but not realistic for this client. So we don't like to share this with clients, but if you need to understand what's going on. But the asset spread is a report inside of here, and all this is doing is taking that same asset spread that you see. Again, this used to be a lot more important when somebody's asked about Monte Carlo, you're trying to explain Monte Carlo, and they couldn't see it before inside of their Decision Center. Asset confidence I don't really like. It's just basically saying how confident or what's the probability of reaching each one of these tiers. And you can see right here, the darker, it's always going to be at the bottom, because the probability of reaching that minimum amount of assets is a lot higher than reaching these crazy numbers. But if you have somebody somehow sees that number, gets rooted in here, that could be helpful to say, hey, look, there's less than a 10% chance of you ever reaching that 77 million number. So it's not realistic. Asset risk is basically a similar report. It just goes the opposite side. What's the risk level? And so it's going to be darker at the top, right? Because there's a much higher risk level. Goals analysis break down each individual goal of the plan. So you can see right here the individual goals that they have, the percentage of funding level, and assumptions. This one right here, this report, a lot of times people say, Greg, there's something missing here. Well, that's because we don't have any fixed rate of returns in here. If I were to change this to my flat rate plan, which has a bunch of flat rates in here, you're going to see all of a sudden that box gets filled up. All right. Everything else it does, it gives you all the definitions of Monte Carlo, which again is nice if you don't really understand it. And then you can see all this information here. All this is in a lot of your reports already, but this is great information in case you don't understand it. In case maybe the way I'm teaching it, you don't understand it, you can always go in here. This is a great way to access this legal language to understand how Monte Carlo is working inside of here. I'm going to finish up my Monte Carlo with, this is great stuff to help you understand and use a planner. If you probably have gotten this far with a client, you probably are too lost in the weeds. It's as simple as go to plans, go to probabilities of success, what's this particular client's probability of success, and what decisions they make that could impact this for higher or for lower. That's what's all you need to really focus on. And you just have to understand what that 91% means. We hope this tip helped educate and empower you to do more plans for your clients so that you can impact more lives through financial planning. If you have some great tips we don't know about, we'd love to hear about them. If you have a better way of doing what we just showed you, we'd love to hear about that, because we are a noble profession, and together we can elevate the profession.